fans sure didn't like that I dissed on their precious show. Sir, you're wrong on so many levels. Your opinions are trash, bro. I can't deal with you talking. You don't even make sense. If you had a brain and know how to perceive a plot line, you'd understand how legendary it is. Bad video. Stupid. Oh man, so sensitive. So much anger. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I watched a garbage show and I didn't like it because it was garbage, and then I gave spot on examples of why it was garbage and you still couldn't handle it. Hey, come here. Yu Yu Hakusho is not good. 112 episodes? Are you shitting me? What a huge waste of time. If the Yu Yu fans want to attack my tiny YouTube channel and insult me because they haven't realized yet that their favorite show sucks, then I guess that they don't really understand the message that Yu Yu Hakusho was trying to get across, do they? If the Yu Yu fans are still here, Kuwabara would be ashamed of you motherfuckers. Yu Yu Hakusho is terrible. Moving on. So you could say I needed an anime palate cleanser to get that awful taste out of my mouth. I decided to watch the show Soul Eater, and I'm really glad that I did. How to describe Soul Eater? Okay. So you know the Grim Reaper, otherwise known as Death. To help him confront the evil in the world, he opened up a school that's a lot like Hogwarts, where teenagers train to become weapons of death. The ultimate goal of these teens is to reach the highest level and become a Death Scythe, which is the ultimate weapon for Death to use at his disposal. Now this is a very odd show. I feel like you're either gonna hate it or you're gonna love it. Personally, I loved it. The way these students work is that some of them are weapon meisters. Weapon meisters physically are the ones that wield the weapons and control the weapons. Then the other students are actually weapons themselves. They can transform into weapons. Still with me? These weapons and meisters then become teams. This show focuses on 3 of those teams. You know, it's an anime, so you got your random other characters coming and going. The 3 main teams are as follows. You've got Mika and Soul. Mika is an overachiever that has a natural ability to see people's souls. Soul is that, like, really chill, too cool for school guy whose real conflict is dealing with his inner demons. Their dynamic is that they start out as the team to be. They're the strongest team. They start to question that, and then they have to work their way back to the unity that they once had. Their team, more or less, is pretty typical, but I really enjoyed how their story arcs played out by the end. Then you've got Black Star and Tsubaki. Black Star, I just absolutely love. He is this cocky little shit that has so much confidence in himself that he believes that one day he will surpass God himself. He is hilarious. He's very annoying at first, but the way he just persists with his confidence is so funny. His weapon is Tsubaki. She's that shy girl, and she puts all of her confidence into this cocky little shit. They completely trust in one another, and they balance each other out really well. The final team is actually led by the son of the Grim Reaper. They call him Death the Kid. He's destined to take over one day and become the Grim Reaper himself. He has 2 weapons because he needs absolute symmetry in his life. You might say he's obsessive compulsive, but I think it goes a lot further than that. His weapons are Patty and Liz. They turn into guns. This is by far my favorite team because Death the Kid is one of the strongest characters in the show, but he's easily distracted by things that aren't symmetrical. So Patty and Liz have to keep him in line and try to not get him killed because he can't stop being distracted by everything that isn't symmetrical.
Well, maybe it's my imagination, but I have this horrible feeling that the painting that I have hanging in my living room is leaning a little bit to the right.
And the way that Death the Kid's battles play out is just fucking hysterical. I think the most uncomfortable thing about this entire show is how Death the Kid actually holds his guns. He holds them upside down. The idea of actually pulling triggers with your pinky fingers is so uncomfortable. I love that team. Every time they showed up, it was a good time. As I said before, the main dude in this world is the Grim Reaper Death. And he has decided to make himself look friendly and give himself these obnoxiously large hands and give himself a friendly voice so he doesn't scare the students at the school that he created. He also likes to karate chop people with his big hands. So silly. The primary villains of this show are witches for the most part, and for some reason that just totally works for me. Witches are just menacing and mysterious, and I like seeing female villains that have more balls than the heroes of the story. All the witches are fucking fearless. I love it. Plus they have these cool witch powers, and they have very high intelligence. Witches, man. They're great villains. I love witches. I had no idea what this show was. I'd never heard of it before. I just started watching it on Netflix. And once I started watching it, it just hit me different than any other anime I've watched so far. This world that the show is set in is just so fucking weird. And I love how weird it is. The weirdness works for me. They just throw you into it. They're like, this is how it is, accept it or don't. And I was like, okay. Here's a good example of like just the random weirdness of the show. They consistently transition between scenes by showing the sun or the moon. And the sun is just this huge, jolly, laughing thing. It's constantly laughing, unless it's a sunset, and then he's a sad sun. He's sad to go away. And the moon is very similar, but the moon is constantly like drooling blood. And yeah, I get it, symbolism for like what's happening in this show, but like, who came up with that? That's fucking weird, man. The art and animation in this was just so stylized for the content that it was, and it was really good. I thought it was great, actually. The character development was fantastic. I found myself falling in love with these characters, and when certain characters showed up for a certain situation, I got excited to see what they were gonna do in that specific situation. And the situations are just as odd as the whole world is. What really made me fall in love with this show was the humor. I think this show is hysterical. 51 episodes, 1 season. The entire first half of the show is humor based off of these characters' flaws. And the humor really works. And the second half of this show is these characters that you've grown to love facing these flaws and trying to overcome them. And yeah, the second half of this show plays out where things get a little more serious. There was about a 10 episode dip where I wasn't really sure where we were going with it. But then the way that they take that and bring it home in the end was fantastic. Other than like that 10 episode lull, the only other issue that I really had was I don't understand how death and injuries work in this show. Like how does a character die? That kind of death. These characters would get severely injured. They'd get stabbed through even. And the next minute, they're fine. I didn't know how to gauge the stakes of the show because these characters seemingly can't die. I just needed that to be refined a little bit. The first couple episodes, there is a character that dies, but then he comes back as a zombie, and he's just a zombie the rest of the show. But there's no other zombies around. There's only one zombie on the show. It's so weird. Yeah, 51 episodes. There's 2 major story arcs, and I thought it was really easy to digest. I had a really fun time watching. It's just silly and weird, and by the end, it wraps up with a very solid message about life that left me going like, oh, whoa. And then it was over, and I was like, man, that was a great show. I loved it. I was very happy that I found it on Netflix. I was very happy that I watched it, and I'll happily watch it again. Unlike Yu Yu Hakusho, which was pure trash. All right? See ya. Subscribe! Yeah, you know how I said that people transform into weapons? The legendary sword Excalibur exists in this universe. And it's just an ongoing joke that Excalibur is this unbelievably powerful weapon, but he's so fucking annoying that nobody wants to deal with his shit.
Fools! What do you use your eyes for? Decoration? Fool! Nothing has been decided yet. The battle's still going on.
What? Are you sure about that?
Fool! Of course I am.
Does that mean you can see what's going on
Fool!
inside?
Silence! I require a cup of tea before I deign to answer that.
How about coffee instead?
Fool! I said tea, and I mean tea.
It's not about being worthy of pulling the sword from the stone. It's about having the patience to deal with this guy's bullshit. And that's just so clever that I just had to give it props. It's so funny.